Hello, in this video I want to cover a sidelines of Winawer system for black in French. I already have a videos about French defense for black on my channel, and I want to continue to discover this opening for you, so you will be able to play it as black on a regular base after my videos. And in today's video we will cover all sidelines except the main e5 for white, just to know them and just to be able to get a good position. And let's start. In this position, white has a lot of moves in this position, basically. Let's start with the e takes d5, probably one of the most annoying option in French defense for black. If you're a French defense lover, I think you know this. So black can go e takes d5. By the way, the line queen takes d5 is also pretty sharp. The idea is like, for example, after knight f3, I want to go bishop d7, like bishop d2, takes, bishop b5. That is the point for black. It's a sharp line, but honestly, white's having a better position here in my vision. So I don't want to cover it up, but you can take a look over this by yourself. So e takes d5 is still the main. Bishop goes to d3. Knight goes to c6. We want to attack the pawn on d4, and the most common reaction for white here is to move the pawn to a3 in that story. So bishop takes c3, takes, knight e7, and here on knight f3 we simply can go bishop f5 to trade the bishops, and this position is pretty okay for black. You don't need to worry about this. And if, for example, white's playing queen h5, that is basically the main theoretical approach to block the bishop f5. Okay, who cares? We can go bishop e6, on rook b1 just b6, and this position is still very solid for black and very okay. So I don't think that seriously white can do any troubles for you here. So e takes d5 is not a seriously big issue, and let's move for some other moves. The very sharp move in this situation is to go a3. Black literally needs to know some theory move here. So the line is takes, queen goes to g4. That is the idea of white. Knight goes to f6. We are forced because other way after queen g7 our rook would be trapped. Rook g8, queen h6. So this position comes really forced. Black can go knight bd7, but I prefer rook to g6 to force the queen move out. So what's about the white? They have two moves, queen f3 and queen goes to d2. So for example, after queen goes to e3, we just can normally go knight c6, knight e2, knight e7. The idea is that we want to use the weird position of white queen by doing knight d5. And for example, in this situation, after knight g3, knight d5, queen d2, b6, I really suppose that black's position is good, so you can play it. It would be sharp and interesting to play this idea. That's why white prefer, after rook g6, normally to go with the queen on d2, trying to cover it up. We can do basically the same way with knight c6, but also as we don't have this idea to attack the queen on d5, we can go with a b6. Pretty nice setup, and the following plan I showed you with the arrows on the board, right? I want to put the bishop on b7, queen can go up, knight can go up, and we can do the long castle. I think this position is pretty risky for white, honestly. How the line could be, for example, a4, knight c6, knight e2, bishop b7, queen goes to d7, bishop b2, castle long. I don't see a single problem for black here. A very easy development. You just need to remember how to better place your pieces, and that's it. The variation is over. That's the story about the move for a3, and we can go on and accept the move a3. What is also tricky and counts as tricky is to defend somehow the pawn on e4. For example, with help of the knight goes to e2 in this situation. Looks like one of the most logical approaches for white. And they also want to destroy our typical gameplay in Winawer with bishop takes c3, b takes c3, about which I will do the videos in the future, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So after knight e2, I love the pretty rare move knight goes to f6. The idea is basically white forced to play e5. They don't have a really nice alternative for this. Knight goes to d7. And now, yes, we are drafting to the pretty classical situations, which can appear in the lines after knight c3, knight f6 immediately, but the knight on e2 is not such a brilliant idea for white. In the line, for instance, a3, I can just go back. In f4, I can go castle, and it's more or less the same how in the main idea after f4 on the move 6 immediately. So castle e3, bishop e7. What to do now? For white, it's logical to play g3 because they need to somehow unlock the bishop from f1. Because of the knight on e2, we can go c5, bishop e3, knight goes to c6, bishop g2, b6, castle, bishop e6. A very playable French position in which, again, black have a nice situation. So you can just take it and play, and you would have a satisfying position after the move number 4, knight e2, knight goes to f6. Returning back, what else could be possible is to protect the pawn with the bishop on d3. That is the line that could be really annoying at some moments if you don't know the theory. So we need to capture. It's forcing to capture with the bishop and gain a tempo on the development because he's hanging. Whites prefer to go on f3 normally. That is the main idea, that they are saving some pressure on the diagonal. Castle, knight goes e2. And here, like, we know that the typical gameplay of black and French is to push the c5, but now we allow to play e5. That is an interesting idea. The point, the tactical point, that in case of d takes e5, we can take and play knight g4. This position is very good for black. We can take back the material on e5 or f2, but in case of takes, we are definitely good on this endgame, right? The king position is pretty bad, so knight c6, rook d8, looks very logical for black. Returning back, so whites mainly goes with a castle short in this situation, and now we can take on c3. The trap is settled because on b takes c3 we can go e4, and unfortunately the bishop is trapped. So white may take with the knight, and here the line is very easy. Take knight e2. For the moment we're even having an extra pawn, so let's protect it. c5, b4 white can do, trying to blow up the center and take back the pawn and unlock the position for the bishops. I like the computer approach d3 in this situation. So the position after takes, c takes b4. Yes, white's having the compensation for the pawn because of the pair of bishops, but nothing more, honestly. So black are pretty safe here, and the line is not so high, like you need to know like 10 moves in general, you know, from the starting position. I mean, so the fourth move, number 4, bishop d3, right, is not so dangerous to us. What else white can provide in case to protect the pawn is queen goes to g4. It's like looks really dangerous because they also want to take on g7, but don't worry, just play knight f6, queen g7, rook g8. It's very okay situation. Queen h6, and here the line I really likes is to go c5 in this position, immediately trying to counter in the center. The typical strategical idea, right? When your opponents attack you on the flank, counter him in the center. So in this position, what's white can do? In case of e5, we can do for the sharp line. Takes, a3, bishop goes back. I will just show an example line. Takes, knight goes to d7. The comfortable endgame. If after c5, what can also white do is to play a3. That is looks really, really logical for white. So we can go rook g6 here and even save our bishop. Why not? D takes c5 would be faced by d4, and after bishop d2, knight c6, I think that we are very good here. So again, the line with queen g4 is not so stressful for us. Let's return it back and cover probably the last one, logical approach, that is bishop goes to d2 in this position. The idea is pretty similar. After d takes to play queen g4, all the time whites try to have this queen g4, but all the time it gives nothing for them. Typical idea for us, knight f6, I think you guessed already this move. Takes, rook g8, queen h6, knight c6. We're so comfortable here, I will just show you the main line. Castle long, that's also the idea of quick development with bishop d2, rook g6, we already know this too, queen h4, rook g4, queen h6, and you can go rook g6 even, so you can go easily to equalize here in this position. If you want to play something more, after rook g6, queen goes h4, bishop takes c3 could be an idea. You can still do is this in the ways, I mean the development of queenside, as we already covered in the other lines. So it was like a short guide for you, so now you know the main ideas of white except the move e5, the general line, and I will explain you general line in the later videos. Don't forget to subscribe, to put a comment, and press like to this video. Thanks for watching and see you soon on my new episodes.